Lesson 6.5, Comparison Problems. In this lesson, we're going to see word problems where one thing is being compared to another, but we're going to have to ask ourselves the question, do we represent the equation using addition or multiplication? Let's get started. Gia has 20 shirts. 1/5 of them are long-sleeved. How many of Gia's shirts are long-sleeved? Okay, I'm going to use L to represent the unknown, the variable. And really what we're trying to ask ourselves is what's 1/5 of 20? And whenever you can show an expression like this, it means multiplication. Now, I can rewrite the whole number as itself over 1. Remember, when we're multiplying or dividing fractions, we do not need a common denominator. Let's multiply across the top. 1 times 20 is 20. Multiply across the bottom. 5 times 1 is 5. And now let's reduce this in the simplest form. 20 over 5. 5 goes into 24 times. 4 shirts out of the 20 are long-sleeved. Number 2, there's 189 coins in Fatima's coin collection. 175 of the coins are pennies. How many coins in the coin collection are not pennies? Okay, so 175 are pennies plus C to represent the ones that are not equals the total amount, 189. What do I need to do to this side of the equation so that I am left with just C? If you said subtract 175 from both sides, you are correct. Let's set that up over here. 9 minus 5 is 4. 8 minus 7 is 1. And we get 14 coins. Number 3, Matt has donated $15 to an animal shelter. That is 1/3 of his goal amount. How much is his goal? Okay, so the G in this case represents the goal. 1/3 of his goal. 1/3 of G is $15. How do I adjust this side of the equation so that instead of being 1/3 of G, it's just plain old G? Well, if I multiply this side by 3, look what happens. And actually, let me show this to you first as multiplication. 1/3 of G is 1/3 times G equals 15. Now, look what happens if I multiply this side of the equation by 3 and this side of the equation by 3. Do you see how over here 3 times 1/3 is just 1? 1 times G is just plain old G. And over here on this side of the equation, 3 times 15 is 45. Therefore, G is equal to $45. Let me rewind that. Our original equation showed 1/3 multiplied by G equals 15. I can multiply both sides of this equation by 3 to get 3/3 times G, or whole number 1 times G, or just plain old G equals 15 times 3, $45 is my answer. Last year, there were 48 days of snow in Frostyville. There were 4 times as many days of snow in Frostyville as in Sunnyville. Well, that makes sense. How many days did it snow in Sunnyvale last year? Okay. How many days? Well, whatever Sunnyvale had times 4 was equal to the amount of snowy days in Frostyville. So D represents the amount of snowy days in Sunnyvale multiplied by 4 matches the amount of snowy days in Frostyville. What adjustment do I need to make so that this side of the equation is just D? Well, if you said let's divide by 4, you'd be correct. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. So D times 4 divided by 4 equals 48 divided by 4. This 4 divided by 4 is 1. D times 1 is just plain old D. Over here, 48 divided by 4 is 12. 12 days. Number 5, Scott wants to take a vacation. He will either go to the desert or the beach. The plane trip to the beach costs $578, and the plane trip to the desert costs $109 less than the plane trip to the beach. Well, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, who wants to go to the desert anyway? What is the cost of the plane trip to the desert? All right. Well, the cost of the trip to the desert, which is cheaper, plus the difference, which is $109, is going to be equal to the slightly pricier, but well worth it, plane trip to the beach. What adjustment do we need to make to this side of the equation so that we're left with just D, the cost of the plane trip to the desert? If you said subtract 109 from both sides, you are on your way to really learning pre-algebra, which you will get plenty of next year in 6th grade. Pre-algebra is all about using clues to solve for an unknown. That's what we're doing. 578 minus 109, 8 has to borrow. And we get our answer of $469. Number 6. The 5th grade class collected 55 soup labels. That number is 5 times as many soup labels as were collected by the kindergarten class. How many soup labels were collected by the kindergarten class? Okay. Well, the amount the kindergartners did multiplied by 5 equals the amount the 5th graders did. Looking at the left-hand side of this equation, what adjustment do we need to make so that we're left with just K, which is what we're trying to solve for? If you said divide both sides by 5, you are correct. So K times 5 divided by 5 equals 55 divided by 5. Remember, 5 divided by 5, well, that's just plain old 1. K times 1 is plain old K. Equals 55 divided by 5. What's 55 divided by 5? 11 labels is our answer. Number 7, there are 6 cans of soda left after a party. There are 1/3 as many cans of soda as bottles of water left. How many bottles of water are there? Let's do maybe B or W for our variable. And 1/3 of the bottles of water is equal to the 6 cans of soda. In other words, there's more bottles of water compared to the cans of soda. Now, what do I need to do to this side of the equation so that it's plain old W, not 1/3 of W, but plain old W. If you said I need to multiply both sides by 3, you are correct. Let's look at that. Three times 1/3 is 1. Plain old 1. 1 times W is W. Equals 6 times 3, or 18 bottles of water.